Are you thinking about getting a new job this year? You're not alone. But do you know there's a lot of training that can help you for free make yourself a better job applicant as you go out and look for that new opportunity? And also, there's a shift in the economy where employment still remains historically exceptionally low in the United States. But people who are being laid off from a job, many of them, it's taking a lot longer to find a new job than it has in years. And there are implications in that we got to talk about. That's later. Right now, I want to talk about the job market. Gallup, that does so many polling and survey things, has found that individual workers are really, really miserable right now in numbers that are virtually unprecedented. I'm looking at the Gallup survey called the Life Evaluation Index, and this survey finds that we are 50-50 now. And the people that are, as they would say, they're asked, are you thriving at work? Are you struggling? Or are you suffering? Today, and I don't remember this ever happening, even during the Great Recession, the number of people that were struggling or suffering at work was never close to being half of all workers in the United States, which is where it is right now. People are, well, I mean, again, 50-50. 1 out of 2 people at work are miserable. Struggling or suffering, that's bad ugly. Because think about how much of our waking hours we spend at work. And if we go to work dreading walking in the door, I've had a job like that before, and it is no fun. Dreading going to work, hating being there, and can't wait to leave. It's bad for your mental well-being. It's bad all the way around. But also, if you are not engaged in what you do for work, you're not going anywhere in that job. And so why this is so important to me is there are so many opportunities out there for you to skill up into things that the marketplace is calling for. You know, the workforce is not a static thing. What people are seeking in a worker, the skills, whatever, constantly moving target, never stops changing. And if you decide you're going to be what you're going to be forever, that's a mistake. You know, I've talked about this to my kids their whole lives when they were really young. So much so I knew I had succeeded when my son, who's training to be a professional airline pilot, called me and said, "Dad, I'm going to get a second degree. I think I'm going to do finance. Is it okay with you? It'll take me 1 additional semester to complete professional pilot and also to have a degree in something else." I said, "Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why do you want to do that?" And then he was repeating back to me what he heard, as propaganda works. He heard much of his life that the nature of work never stops changing. He said, "Dad, I saw this story that Airbus is trying to get approval around the world by 29 to only have a single pilot in the cockpit. You know, because of all the automation going into airplanes." He said, I don't know what kind of longevity my career as a professional pilot will have. I don't know when planes are going to all fly themselves. And I thought that was really smart of a teenager to recognize that and already be preparing for what happens if his dream job, because let me tell you, he loves flying an airplane. If his dream job no longer is viable, he's already thinking, what else would he be doing? And that's not human nature. Usually we have blinders on with our job or career, and what we do is what we do. And then that makes you roadkill for what changes over time. Because I will tell you that in 2050, almost all the jobs that exist will be things that don't exist today. Because the market never stops changing. Technology never stops moving forward. And so you have to be prepared for change. And sometimes that's going to mean additional training or even education. I mean, I think about how many times over the years I've talked about Coursera, which has thousands upon thousands of free courses available that can teach you skills for free. You don't get a degree, you don't get a certification, but you're able to learn skills. And a lot of employers now are not as much into certifications of various kinds, as they are into you having the skill base to do a job. And there are hundreds of universities that make their courses available for free through Coursera. I love that. There's another one I didn't know about, I saw in Fast Company, EDX, which has 1,000 courses that was founded by Harvard and MIT. It has 1,000 courses you can take for free. They call it auditing the courses. But there's an online catalog of those. And then for years I've talked about Khan Academy, which is a nonprofit that is all about free education for STEM. And, you know, last month I read a list of all the jobs that are paying the most money, and they were almost 100% of them were somehow engineering or STEM. I'm trying to think if there were any that weren't engineering or STEM. So you've got these resources available to not feel stuck in a rut, to not feel like I just hate, I'm struggling, or what were the terms of the Gallup thing? Suffering or struggling. Man, is that a way to live your work existence? Struggling or suffering? When there's so much other opportunity out there. It's not just about money. It's about that you look forward to what you do, that you enjoy what you do, that you have options in what you do. That's what I want. I don't want you stuck in a rut. Coming up ahead, I want to talk about a shifting job market and what you need to know to protect yourself. The U.S. economy is a big, big, complicated thing. And the job market in the U.S. has been the strongest in the world year after year after year. And coming out of the peak of COVID in 20, far and away the world's best economy. Unemployment measures over the last few years have been unprecedented how low unemployment's been. Americans have not felt excited about any of that because inflation undermines confidence like nothing else. So think of the irony. Inflation is a fraction of what it was during the peak, during the COVID shortages. And at the same time, employment is not as strong. The two have a correlation. But I need to tell you that the job market still is very, very good if you look back through history, I mean, we have an unemployment rate in the United States just a little over 4%. There are times in my lifetime that if you said, hey, you know what? I bet you in the future we're going to have an unemployment rate of 4%. People would ask, what you been taking? You been drinking something you shouldn't drink? I mean, people couldn't have imagined an unemployment rate that low. But people are finding that if their employer does go out of business, their employer gets into a little bit of difficulty and lays people off or anything like that, that finding the next job is harder. And it's not just a thing that you feel, it's a fact. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the federal agency that tracks all this, finds that it's taking the average amount of time is about, almost 6 months that people are unemployed after they lose a job. This is a big, big step up. You think about during the time period that employers were just wheezing, trying to find any worker they could back a couple of years ago. And it was so weird. The employers were hiring people when they finished schooling, if it was in a path that they wanted, were extending offers to people when they didn't have a job for them to do yet and paying them to do nothing. We're not there anymore. And so it means to be prepared. That's the Boy Scout motto, right? And so what do I mean by that? You need to be really, really thinking about having that good rainy day account. Being prepared for a period of time of an oops in your life. Oops come in all different shapes and styles. But most of us, even if we have a lifestyle that we could do it, don't build up that rainy day money. But when I see stats like this from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing lengthy periods of unemployment becoming a new norm after you lose a job, even with only 4 point whatever percent unemployment, it means that you've got to prepare for how you're going to pay your bills if that event happened to you. Again, most of us kind of have a sense where we work, how secure the job is. But if you're not sure or you know that who knows what could happen, think about this. Be careful with buying things you don't have to have, but you just think they're fun to have. In other words, rein in your unnecessary spending to make sure you get to that point that you've got that reserve. And I know that you'll hear that you should have 6 months in living costs saved. Not earnings, but living costs saved. And if you've got 0 pennies saved, you're like, why would I even bother? Well, nothing happens in a day. It's all about changing your perceptions and your habits. So if you got nothing, you should work towards a goal of having a month's living costs saved. When you get to that month, then you worry about the second month and on like that. But don't try to do it all at once. Because if you do, you're going to get discouraged and you're just going to give up. But the day you resolve that you're going to start building up that cushion, that reserve, is a day that you start reducing the anxiety in your life and creating more security in that life.